In 48 BC, one fire erased more knowledge than the internet has ever held, and no one agrees who lit the match. The first thing you notice is the smell. Papyrus ink and the faint copper tang of blood from the scribe's cut fingers. You are standing in the Brucheian quarter of Alexandria, Egypt, 285 BC, and the air hums with languages you have never heard. A Greek merchant haggles in Aramaic over a scroll of Babylonian star charts. A Nubian priestess unrolls a linen map showing the Nile's hidden tributaries. A Jewish scholar from Jerusalem translates the Torah into Greek for the first time, his quill scratching like a trapped insect. All of them are here because Ptolemy Soter, the Macedonian warlord who stole Egypt after Alexander the Great's death, issued a single decree. Every ship docking in Alexandria must surrender its books. Customs officers board at dawn, copy the texts overnight, return cheap duplicates, and keep the originals. The library is born from theft, and it grows like a tumor. By 250 BC, the collection numbers 400,000 scrolls. The Mausion, the temple of the muses attached to the library, houses 100 resident scholars on state salary. They eat figs and honey, argue about whether the earth orbits the sun, and dissect human corpses in secret. Eratosthenes, the chief librarian, measures the planet's circumference using shadows in wells. He is off by only 200 miles. Hipparchus plots 1,020 stars and invents the magnitude scale still used by NASA. Euclid writes the textbook that will torture high schoolers for 2,000 years. The library is not a building. It is a weapon. Knowledge here is power, and power is dangerous. Ptolemy III wants more. He writes to every king on earth, "Send us your books, we will copy them and return them improved." Athens, suspicious, loans the original manuscripts of Aeschylus, Sophocles, Euripides, on condition of a 15-talent deposit. Ptolemy keeps the originals, forfeits the gold, and laughs. The library swells to 700,000 scrolls. Warehouses overflow. Scholars tattoo shelf marks on their forearms to navigate the stacks. A rumor spreads that the complete works of Aristotle, lost to us forever, sleep in cedar boxes sealed with wax. Somewhere in the chaos is a scroll claiming the Phoenicians reached America 1,000 years before Columbus. Another contains the Egyptian Book of the Dead, annotated by a Greek necromancer. The library is a black hole of information, and every secret in the Mediterranean is sliding toward its event horizon. But black holes collapse. In 145 BC, Ptolemy VIII, a paranoid teenager who murdered his own mother, expels every foreign scholar. Greek intellectuals flee to Pergamon, Rhodes, Athens, carrying fragments of Alexandria's monopoly. The brain drain is catastrophic. The library limps on, funded by shrinking royal budgets and growing religious fanaticism. By the 1st century AD, the Mausion is a ghost town. Scrolls rot. Rats nest in Herodotus. Then Julius Caesar arrives, BC. Caesar is trapped in the royal palace, besieged by Ptolemy III's army. His men, panicked, set fire to the Egyptian fleet in the harbor. The flames leap the seawalls. Contemporary accounts differ. Strabo says the fire accidentally reaches warehouses containing 40,000 scrolls awaiting export. Plutarch claims Caesar deliberately torched the library itself to create a distraction. Seneca sneers that 40,000 is a rounding error. Modern archaeologists find scorch marks on keystones, but no ash layer in the Brucheion. The truth is a shrug. Tens of thousands of books burn. The library survives, wounded but breathing. The second blow comes in 272 AD. Emperor Aurelian crushes Queen Zenobia's rebellion. His legions sack the Brucheion. The Mausion is gutted. The daughter library in the Serapeum, a temple to Serapis converted into a backup archive, becomes the last bastion. It holds maybe 10% of the original collection. Scholars whisper that the most dangerous texts were smuggled out decades earlier. Star maps showing Antarctic coastlines, steam engine blueprints, medical treatises describing germ theory. No evidence, just hope. 91 AD, Christian Emperor Theodosius bans pagan sacrifices. Patriarch Theophilus of Alexandria, drunk on imperial license, leads a mob against the Serapeum. Statues of Serapis are toppled. Scrolls are used as kindling to heat public baths. A Coptic monk named Hypatia tries to save what she can. She is a mathematician, astronomer, philosopher, the last known member of the Mausion. In 415 AD, a Christian Parabolani gang drags her from her chariot, strips her naked, flays her alive with roof tiles, and burns her limbs in a church. The library's final guardian dies screaming. The Serapeum is demolished. The site becomes a parking lot, or does it? Arab conquest, 642 AD. Caliph Omar allegedly receives a report. The library's remnants still clutter the city. His response is quoted in a 13th century text. If those books agree with the Quran, they are superfluous. If they disagree, they are heretical. Burn them. 6 months of bathhouse fuel. Historians debate the quote's authenticity, but the baths stay warm, yet fragments escape. A Jewish merchant in Cairo sells a scrap of Euclid to a Byzantine monk. An Andalusian scholar in Cordoba copies a star catalog attributed to Hipparchus. In 10th century Baghdad, the House of Wisdom translates Greek texts into Arabic, then Latin, then the Renaissance. The library dies but metastasizes. Every university library on Earth is its malignant offspring. Here is the twist no documentary dares. The library was never one place. Alexandria was the visible node of a decentralized network. Satellite collections existed in Pergamon, Antioch, Constantinople. Private citizens hoarded scrolls in desert villas. Bedouin traders carried coded fragments across the Sahara. The fire of 48 BC, the sack of 272 AD, the mob of 391 AD. These were publicity stunts compared to the quiet hemorrhage of knowledge into 1,000 hiding places. The library did not burn. It dispersed. In 2004, the Bibliotheca Alexandrina opens on the Corniche, a $220 million glass disc tilting toward the sea. Architects claim it symbolizes the rising sun of knowledge. Inside, the reading room seats 2,000. The shelves can hold 8 million books. They contain 500,000. The rest is air-conditioned emptiness. A plaque quotes Callimachus, the ancient cataloger. A big book is a big evil. No one laughs. Beneath the new library, divers probe the royal harbor. They find granite sphinxes, obelisks, columns, but no scrolls. Papyrus dissolves in seawater within decades. The only hope is anaerobic mud. In 1996, a French team pulls up a waterlogged cedar box. Inside, a carbonized scroll, edges fused. CT scans reveal Greek letters. The text is a shipping manifest. Olive oil, 47 BC. The library's ghost is mundane, or is it? In 2018, satellite radar detects voids beneath the Shalalat Gardens, 500 meters from the presumed Serapeum site. Ground-penetrating radar shows rectangular chambers 20 meters down. Egyptian authorities deny excavation permits. Conspiracy forums explode. The Vatican has the keys. The CIA wants the steam engine plans. Elon Musk tweets a thinking emoji. Nothing happens. Here is what we know for certain. Between 90% and 99% of all ancient literature is lost. We possess 1% of Sappho, 7 plays of Sophocles out of 123, 0 books by the female mathematician Pandrosian. The Library of Alexandria is the name we give to that absence. Every time a teenager in Ohio Googles flat Earth and finds Ptolemy's refutation, the library flickers back to life. Every time a coder in Bangalore trains an AI on Euclid, Hypatia smiles in whatever afterlife mathematicians inherit. The fire was never the disaster. The disaster is that we stopped looking. Somewhere, maybe in a monastery cellar in Ethiopia, maybe in a Bedouin tent in the Sinai, maybe in a mislabeled crate in the British Museum, there is a scroll that changes everything. It has your name on it. If you could recover one lost text from Alexandria, any language, any subject, what would you choose, and why? Reply below. Imagine the year 285 BC and you are a ship's captain from Rhodes docking at the great harbor of Alexandria. For the first time, the lighthouse Pharaoh still under construction towers above you, its limestone blocks rising tier by tier toward a flame that will one day be visible 50 kilometers out to sea. But right now, it is just a skeleton of ambition, and you tie up at the quay where customs officers in linen kilts board. Without asking permission, they demand your cargo manifest, and then they demand your books. You protest that you carry only ledgers and a single copy of Homer for the crew's evening readings, but they smile the way tax collectors smile and take the Homer anyway, promising a copy returned by morning. You watch them carry it toward a warehouse marked with the royal seal of Ptolemy, Soter, and you understand that in Alexandria, even words are contraband. The next morning, your duplicate arrives on cheaper papyrus, the margins trimmed, the illustrations smudged. But the officers keep the original, and you sail away lighter by one epoch and heavier by the knowledge that somewhere in this city, a Macedonian king is building a cage for every story ever told. Fast forward 5 years, and the cage has a name, the Library of Alexandria, and it already holds 40,000 scrolls stacked in cedar racks labeled by the Pinnaces of Callimachus, a catalog so precise that scholars will use its decimal system for 2 millennia. The air inside is cool and dry, maintained by slaves who fan charcoal braziers to control humidity. A visitor from Athens describes the smell as equal parts honey and dust. And you believe him because the honey comes from the figs served to resident scholars, and the dust comes from the desert that never quite stops trying to reclaim the city. The scholars themselves are a strange priesthood. Eratosthenes, the polymath who will measure the earth, walks past you, arguing with a geometer about the angle of the ecliptic. He carries a gnomon, a shadow stick, and a bowl of water, his eyes already calculating the curve of the planet, while beside him, a botanist sketches a plant brought from India, its leaves serrated like a shark's smile. And in the dissection room, a physician named Herophilus slices open a criminal's chest to reveal the valves of the heart beating for science for the first time in history. The criminal was sentenced to death anyway, but the knowledge gained will save millions, and no one asks if the exchange was fair, because in Alexandria progress has teeth. Now jump to 246 BC. Ptolemy III has ascended the throne, and his ambition is a bonfire. He writes letters sealed with gold to every library in the known world. Athens, Pergamon, Rhodes, even the distant satraps of Bactria. The message is simple. Send us your books, we will copy them and return them. Improved. Athens hesitates, but eventually loans the state copies of Aeschylus, Sophocles, Euripides. The deposit required is 15 talents of gold, a fortune. Ptolemy pays. It keeps the originals, and sends back copies so flawless that Athenian scribes weep at their own inferiority. The deposit is forfeited with a shrug, and the library swells to 500,000 scrolls. The warehouse is grown. Scrolls are stored in the temple of Serapis in the royal palace in underground vaults, cooled by Nile water channeled through clay pipes. The catalog grows to 120 volumes. Callimachus dies of exhaustion, but his system lives on, and somewhere, in the stacks, a scroll appears that should not exist. It is written in a script no one can read, the letters angular and dotted like bird tracks on wet sand. A Persian mage claims it came from the ruins of Persepolis. Another says it is Atlantean. Nonsense. The debate rages for months until the scroll vanishes as mysteriously as it arrived, and no one thinks to copy it because copying the unknown feels like tempting fate. Now it is 200 BC, and the library is a city within a city, its own postal system, its own fire brigade, its own police force to stop scroll theft. Scholars wear colored ribbons to indicate their discipline, red for mathematics, blue for astronomy, black for the forbidden texts kept in locked cedar boxes. The forbidden section is rumored to contain the complete works of Aristotle, including dialogues on comedy, that would make a satyr blush mechanical schematics for a steam turbine medical recipes using electricity from electric eels and star maps, showing constellations, visible only from the southern hemisphere. The head librarian, a eunuch named Apollonius, guards the keys with his life, literally, when a rival tries to bribe him. Apollonius swallows the keys and dies 3 days later of intestinal blockage. The keys are recovered surgically, and the rival is exiled to the oasis of Siwa, where the oracle of Amun predicts he will be eaten by a crocodile. The prediction comes true, and no one is surprised because in Alexandria, even prophecy is catalogued now fast. Forward to 145 BC. The Golden Age is cracking. Ptolemy VIII. Physcon, a boy king with the temper of a wasp, has murdered his own mother and married his sister. He fears intellectuals the way medieval popes feared witches. He issues an edict all foreign. Scholars must leave within 30 days. The expulsion is chaos. Greek philosophers pack their notes into donkey saddles. Jewish scribes hide Torah fragments in wine amphorae. Indian astronomers memorize star positions rather than risk losing clay tablets. The library loses half its brain in a single month. The remaining scholars are Egyptian or Greek-Egyptian hybrids who speak a Creole of Demotic and Attic. They keep the lights on, but the spark is dimmer. The catalog stops growing. The Pinakis are no longer updated. Scrolls are misshelved. Whole sections are eaten by silverfish, and the desert wind finds new cracks in the walls. Now it is 48 BC, and Julius Caesar sails into the harbor with 800 men and a civil war on his heels. He is here to install Cleopatra VII on the throne, but first he must survive her brother Ptolemy XIII's army. The siege begins in the royal quarter. Caesar's men are outnumbered 10 to 1. They barricade the palace and wait for reinforcements that may never come on the night of the winter solstice. A Roman centurion named Gaius sets fire to the Egyptian fleet to prevent it from flanking the palace. The fire spreads faster than anyone expects, fueled by pitch and papyrus. The flames leap the seawall and reach the warehouses where 40,000 scrolls await export to Rome. The scribes run into the streets screaming. The sky turns orange. Plutarch will later write that Caesar watched from the palace roof unmoved, but a Greek eyewitness claims he wept like a child. The fire burns for 6 hours by dawn. The harbor is black with ash and the library is missing an arm. But the Mausion still stands, the Serapeum still stands, and the scholars count their losses and begin the long task of copying what remains now. Jump to 272 AD. The Roman Empire is a corpse wearing purple. Emperor Aurelian marches on Alexandria to crush the Palmyrene rebellion led by Queen Zenobia. His legions breach the city walls and head straight for the Bruchaion. The royal quarter is put to the torch. The Mausion burns for 3 days. The heat is so intense that marble statues melt into puddles. The library's main collection is annihilated, but the daughter library in the Serapeum survives, guarded by pagan priests who nail the doors shut and dare the soldiers to desecrate a temple. The soldiers hesitate long enough for Zenobia's scribes to smuggle cartloads of scrolls into the desert. The hiding places are wadis, cisterns, tombs. The scrolls are wrapped in linen soaked in cedar oil and buried with mummies for camouflage. Centuries later, Bedouin children will find them and use them as tinder, never knowing they are burning Euclid. Now it is 391 AD, and the Christian Emperor Theodosius I has banned all pagan worship. Patriarch Theophilus of Alexandria sees his chance. He preaches a sermon comparing Serapis to Satan and leads a mob of monks and parabolani to the temple. The doors are battered down with battering rams taken from the Roman arsenal. Inside the statue of Serapis, a hollow colossus plated in gold and ivory is hacked to pieces. The head is paraded through the streets on a pike. The scrolls are dragged out by the armful. Some are torn apart for their jeweled covers. Others are piled. In the courtyard and satellite, the fire is small compared to Caesar's, but the symbolism is total. Hypatia, the last known scholar of the Mausion, tries to save what she can. She is 55 years old, her hair still black, her mind sharper than any blade. She stands in the doorway of the scriptorium holding a copy of Diophantus's Arithmetica and begs the monks to spare the mathematics. They laugh and call her a witch. 4 years later, in 415 AD, the same mob drags her from her chariot, strips her with ostraca roof tiles, and flays her alive. Her body is burned in the library's ruins. The ashes are scattered in the harbor where Caesar's fire began. The circle is complete now. Fast forward to 642 AD. The Arab general Amr ibn al-As conquers Alexandria for the Caliph Omar. The city surrenders without a fight. The library is long gone, but rumors persist that scrolls survive in monasteries, cellars, private collections. A Greek deacon approaches Amr with a proposal: sell the remaining books to the new rulers and use the money to rebuild the city. Amr writes to Omar for instructions. The caliph's reply is preserved in the history of Ibn Abd al-Hakam. If the books agree with the Quran, they are redundant. If they contradict the Quran, they are blasphemous. In either case, burn them. The burning lasts 6 months. The bathhouses of Alexandria never run out of hot water. The smoke smells of honey and dust, and the desert wind carries it east toward Baghdad, where a new library, the House of Wisdom, will be born from the ashes. Now it is 2004, and the Bibliotheca Alexandrina rises like a phoenix made of glass and concrete. The architects tilt the roof to catch the sunrise. The reading room is a cathedral of silence. The shelves are mostly empty. The Egyptian government fills them with donated textbooks and UNESCO goodwill. The opening ceremony features speeches about the rebirth of knowledge, but the divers in the harbor still find only pottery shards, and the underground voids detected by radar remain unexcavated. The library is a monument to what we lost and what we refuse to find. Now it is 2025, and you are reading this on a screen that contains more information than the library ever held. The irony is not lost on you. Every swipe, every scroll, every meme is a fragment of Alexandria reborn. But the original scrolls are still out there somewhere, in a cave in the Sinai, in a crate in the Vatican, in a private collection in Dubai, waiting for the right bribe, the right war, the right moment to surface. The library did not die. It went underground, and it is waiting for you to ask the right question, the one that opens the locked cedar box, the one that makes the desert give up its dead, the one that proves knowledge is not fragile. It is patient, and it is coming back with interest. You wake up in a room that smells of salt and old paper, and the first thing you see is the ceiling painted with the zodiac, as Hipparchus drew it 2,275 years ago. The constellations are slightly wrong because the precession of the equinoxes has shifted them. But you recognize Orion's belt and the Pleiades, and you realize you are lying on a marble bench in the rebuilt Bibliotheca Alexandrina. The glass roof above you is tilted to catch the dawn, and the light fractures into rainbows on the empty shelves. You sit up, and a woman in a navy hijab is watching you from the information desk. Her name tag reads, Dieter Amani Fawzi, curator of lost manuscripts. She smiles the way museum guards smile when they know something you don't, and she says you fell asleep during the midnight tour. The building is closed, but the night staff let you stay because you kept asking about the cedar box from 1996, the one with the carbonized shipping manifest. She leads you past the children's section, where cardboard pyramids lean like drunks, and into a corridor marked Staff Only. The air grows colder. The fluorescent lights flicker, and she unlocks a steel door with a key card. The room beyond is refrigerated. to 4 degrees Celsius and lined with drawers labeled in Arabic, Greek, and English. She pulls out drawer 17A, and inside on a bed of acid-free foam is the cedar box, the size of a shoebox. Its lid cracked by fire, but the wax seal intact, she says. The CT scan showed Greek letters, but the scroll is fused solid. We can read the first line only. It says, "To the royal quarter from the harbor, Master 47 BC olive oil 400 amphorae." The rest is charcoal. She asks if you want to touch it, and you do. The wood is warm, despite the cold room, as if the fire never quite left, and you understand that this is the closest you will ever come to shaking hands with Julius Caesar's supply clerk. Now she closes the drawer and leads you deeper into the stacks. The new library is built on the old foundations, and the architects left gaps, deliberate voids where the ancient walls used to be. She stops at a manhole cover in the floor and lifts it with a crowbar. The ladder descends 20 meters into darkness. The air smells of wet limestone and Nile mud. She hands you a headlamp and says, "The radar anomalies are down here." The Egyptian Antiquities Authority banned excavation, but the night shift looks the other way for scholars with insomnia. You climb down and your boots splash into ankle-deep water. The tunnel is Roman brick, lined with niches that once held oil lamps. Graffiti in Greek curses. A tax collector named Demetrios, who shortchanged a brothel in 112 AD. You follow Amani for 200 meters until the tunnel opens into a chamber. 10 meters wide, the ceiling has collapsed in places, revealing the foundations of the Serapeum above you. The floor is littered with pottery shards, and here and there the corner of a scroll protrudes from the silt, like a drowning hand. Amani kneels and brushes away mud from one fragment. The papyrus is black, but the ink is silver, lead-based and still legible. It is a letter from Hypatia to her student Synesius, later bishop of Cyrene. She writes, "I have calculated the date of the next lunar eclipse using the Saros cycle, but the priests say it is sorcery. If the mob comes, hide the Diophantus in the cistern behind the statue of Hermes." The letter breaks off mid-sentence, and you feel the hairs on your neck rise because you are holding the last words of a woman murdered for teaching mathematics. Amani pockets the fragment in a Ziploc bag and says, "We have found 12 such letters, but the authorities want them reburied. The official story is that the library burned completely, and anything else threatens tourism." She leads you to a bricked-up archway. The mortar is fresh, but the bricks are Roman reuse from the Aurelian sack. She taps one, and it sounds hollow. Behind it is another chamber. She says the ground-penetrating radar shows shelves, 30 meters of them, but the Ministry of Antiquities claims it is a sewage line and denies permits. She smiles the way smugglers smile and produces a cordless drill from her satchel. The bit chews through mortar in seconds, and the first brick falls inward, revealing darkness that smells of cedar and frankincense. You crawl through the hole, and your headlamp catches rows of cedar pigeonholes, each holding a roll of papyrus wrapped in linen. The labels are inked in red. Demotic section, Piochi. The philosophical texts. You unroll the first scroll with fingers that shake. It is a dialogue between Plato and an Egyptian priest. The priest claims Atlantis sank 11,000 years ago because its priests forgot the difference between a map and the territory. The dialogue ends with Plato asking for the location of the surviving pillars of Heracles, and the priest refusing to answer, because some knowledge is a loaded gun. The scroll is signed in a different hand. Hypatia copy, 410 AD. You realize you are holding a text that survived the mob by 5 years, and you understand why Amani risks her job every night. Now you move deeper into the chamber. The air grows warmer. The cedar boxes are arranged by Callimachus's Pinakes. The decimal system still works. You find shelf 7, 312. Aristotle unpublished, and inside is a wax tablet with an impression of a screw pump labeled Archimedes' steam sphere. The diagram shows a hollow bronze globe filled with water heated by a coal brazier. The steam turns a spindle that lifts water. From the Nile to irrigate the royal gardens, the note in the margin reads, "Tested, 212 BC, lifted 400 liters per minute." Ptolemy Ford laughed and ordered it melted down for coins. You photograph the tablet with your phone and the flash reflects off something. Metallic at the back of the shelf, a bronze astrolabe the size of a dinner plate, its pointers shaped like serpents. The inscriptions are in Greek and an unknown script that looks like Ogham but predates it by centuries. Amani whispers, "This is the Antikythera mechanism's older brother. We carbon dated the corrosion to 180 BC. The gears inside predict eclipses, planetary retrogrades, and the Olympic cycle. It was found in a shipwreck off Rhodes in 1901, but the Greek Navy classified it, and it vanished into a crate marked fishing gear. You lift the astrolabe and it is heavier than it should be. The back plate unscrews, revealing a hollow compartment inside is a single sheet of gold leaf, beaten thin as cigarette paper. The text is etched with a stylus in Linear B, the Mycenaean script that should not exist in Egypt. It describes a voyage west beyond the Pillars of Heracles to a land of red-skinned people who measure time by the flowering of a tree that blooms once every 52 years. The coordinates are given in a base 60 system that matches the Babylonian, but the longitude is impossible, 75 degrees west of Alexandria, which places it in the Caribbean. The gold leaf is signed Thales of Miletus, 585 BC, and you realize you are holding proof that the Greeks reached America 2,000 years before Columbus. But the gold is soft and the etching is wearing away. With every breath you take, Amani wraps it in silk and says, "We have to choose what to smuggle out tonight." The authorities raid these tunnels every new moon. We can save one scroll, one tabletone secret. The rest will be reburied or sold to private collectors in Dubai. You choose the gold leaf because it rewrites history, and she chooses Hypatia's letter because it rewrites her story. You crawl back through the hole, and she replaces the brick with fresh mortar that will harden by morning. The ladder takes you up into the refrigerated room, and the cedar box is still waiting. You ask Amani what happens now, and she says the same thing that happened in 48 BC, in 272 AD, in 391 AD. The library burns a little every time someone chooses safety over truth, but it also survives a little every time someone risks everything to copy one more line you leave. The Bibliotheca at 5:17 a.m. The call to prayer echoes from the minarets, and the Mediterranean is the color of oxidized copper. You walk along the Corniche past fishermen mending nets and tourists taking selfies with the new library's glass disc. Behind you, a street vendor sells coffee thick as tar, and you buy 2 cups, one for you, one for the ghost of Callimachus, who is almost certainly watching the sunrises, and the light hits the library's roof at the exact angle the architects intended. The disc becomes a lens focusing the dawn into a beam that strikes the water, and for 1 second the harbor glows like molten gold. You blink and the moment is gone, but you know what you saw. The library is still signaling, still transmitting across 2 millennia of static, and the message is simple: we are not done with you yet. Now you are on the flight from Alexandria to London. Your phone is off because Egyptian security scans for photos of artifacts, but the images are burned into your retina: the gold leaf, the steam sphere, Hypatia's last sentence. You land at Heathrow and clear customs with a story about a boring academic conference on Ptolemaic trade routes. The customs officer stamps your passport and says, "Enjoy your stay in the United Kingdom." The moment you are through the gate, you open the secure cloud drive you uploaded from Amani's laptop in the library. Cafeteria. The files are there. 4K scans of the gold leaf, the astrolabe, the wax tablet, the Hypatia fragment. You hesitate for exactly 3 seconds, and then you post them to an anonymous server with the caption, "Library of Alexandria." 2025. Leak the Internet explodes. Within minutes, the BBC runs a breaking news ticker. Scholars on X scream forgery. The Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities issues a statement calling the images AI-generated deepfakes. The Vatican says nothing, which is louder than any denial. By noon, the gold leaf coordinates are trending under the hashtag Atlantis Found. Conspiracy forums map the location to the Bahamas and plan expeditions. A crypto project mints NFTs of the Steam Sphere and raises $10 million in pre-sale. You watch from a hotel room in Bloomsbury. The curtains drawn, the television muted on a panel show where a comedian jokes that the Library of Alexandria was cancelled for cultural appropriation. You laugh for the first time in 24 hours because the joke is on all of us now. The backlash begins. The Egyptian government accuses you of terrorism under the 2015 Antiquities Law. Interpol issues a red notice. The British Museum quietly removes 3 Ptolemaic papyri from display. Just in case you go dark, delete the cloud drive, wipe the phone with a magnet. You take the tube to King's Cross and board the first train north. The Yorkshire Dales are cold and wet and perfect. You rent a cottage under the name John Smith and spend the winter transcribing the gold leaf by hand onto acid-free paper. The tree that blooms every 52 years is the Kaaba, the Maya sacred tree. The coordinates match the location of the cenote at Chichen Itza, where divers have found gold, bells, and jade axes, but no Greek artifacts yet. You mail the transcription to 3 scholars, 1 in Mexico, 1 in Greece, 1 in Japan with no return address. The packages are postmarked. Whitby and the stamps feature puffins. Spring comes, and the story mutates. A Mexican diver claims to have found a bronze serpent head at the bottom of the cenote. The head has Greek letters. The diver sells the photos to National Geographic for $500,000. The magazine runs the headline, DD the Greeks Discover America. The article is careful, measured, skeptical, but the cover sells out in 3 hours. The Egyptian government quietly reopens the Shalalat Gardens tunnels with UNESCO supervision. The first crate they bring up contains a cedar box labeled Aristotle Comedy. The wax tablets inside describe a play about a philosopher who invents a machine to predict the future. But the machine only predicts that it will be smashed by a mob. The play ends with the philosopher shrugging and saying at least the reviews will be good. The tablets are dated to 320 BC, and the handwriting matches the known Aristotle autographs in the British Library. The world loses its mind again, because humor is the one thing we thought the ancients lacked. Now it is 2026 and you are back in Alexandria. The Bibliotheca has a new wing called the Hypatia Vault. It is open to the public and admission is free. The gold leaf is displayed under bulletproof glass next to the Steam Sphere, replica, and the original Hypatia letter. The curator is Dr. Amani Fawzi. She wears the same navy hijab and smiles the same museum smile when she sees you. She says the ministry tried to fire me, but the tourists wanted the woman who found the lost library, so they promoted me instead. The vault is packed with teenagers from Cairo, London, Tokyo. They take selfies with the artifacts and argue about whether the Greeks stole the steam engine from the Chinese or the Chinese stole it from the Greeks. The argument is in 4 languages, and no one is angry, because the past is suddenly big enough for everyone. You walk to the harbor at sunset, the water is calm, and the new library's disc reflects the sky like a coin tossed into a wishing well. You throw a real coin, a British pound with the Queen's head worn smooth, and you make the same wish you made in the underground chamber. Let the next fire be the one that forges something new, not the one that erases the old. The coin sinks and the ripples spread, and somewhere in the silt, the cedar box from 1996 shifts slightly, as if acknowledging the contract. Now it is 2027, and the ceiba tree at Chichen Itza blooms on schedule. The flowers are white and smell like vanilla. The Maya elders say it is a sign. The Greeks say it is confirmation. The scientists say it is coincidence. The tourists take selfies. And the tree does not care because it has been blooming every 52 years since before any of us had names. The bronze serpent head is in the Mexico City Anthropology Museum, next to the Aztec Sunstone. The label reads, Greek mariners offering, circa 600 BC, provenance unknown. The word unknown is in bold, because that is the only honest thing left to say. Now it is 2028, and the Bibliotheca Alexandrina hosts the first international conference on lost libraries. The keynote speaker is a 16-year-old from Lagos who used the leaked steam sphere plans to build a solar-powered water pump for her village. The pump lifts 2,000 liters per minute, and the village has running water for the first time in 20 years. She stands on the stage in a Manchester United jersey and says, "The Library of Alexandria did not burn, it migrated." The audience gives her a standing ovation. That lasts 7 minutes. The Egyptian president claps hardest because the cameras are rolling and the tourists are spending money. Now it is 2029 and you are old enough to need reading glasses. The cottage in the Dales has a garden where you grow figs, because the scholars in the Mauseon ate figs, and you want to taste what knowledge tasted like. The figs are sweet and the seeds stick in your teeth, like tiny reminders that everything is borrowed. You write a book no one asked for, titled The Library That Refused to Die. It is 500 pages of footnotes and no conclusion because the story is still downloading the book. Sells 12 copies all to librarians who leave it on the reserve shelf for students who will never check it out. Now it is 2030 and the ceiba tree blooms again. The Mexican government invites the Greek Navy to a joint expedition. They send a research vessel with side-scan sonar and a submersible. The submersible finds a wooden hull at the bottom of the cenote. The wood is cedar of Lebanon. The nails are bronze. The cargo is amphorae, stamped with the Ptolemaic eagle. The hull is dated to 180 BC. The Greeks and the Maya shake hands on the deck of the research vessel, and the photographers cry because history is suddenly a love story. Now it is 2031, and the Bibliotheca Alexandrina opens a virtual wing. Anyone with a VR headset can walk the stacks as they were in 250 BC. The avatars of Eratosthenes and Hypatia give tours in 12 languages. The Eratosthenes avatar measures the earth with a stick and a well and gets the same answer every time the Hypatia avatar teaches calculus to a classroom of avatars from Sao Paulo, Nairobi, Seoul. The students ask if the mob will come for them, and Hypatia says only if you let them. The VR wing crashes the first day from too many users, and the technicians laugh because the library is too big for the internet. Now it is 2032 and you are dying. The figs are ripe, and the garden smells like Alexandria. In August, the hospice nurse is a young man from Alexandria who studied engineering on the steam sphere. Plans, he holds your hand and says, "The village pump is still working. The water is clean. The children are healthy." You ask him to read from the book you wrote. He opens to a random page and reads the line you underlined in red. The library is not a place. It is a promise that no question is stupid and no answer is final. You close your eyes and the last thing you hear is the nurse whispering, in Arabic, the same phrase Amani whispered in the tunnel. The library is still signaling, still transmitting across 2 millennia of static, and the message is simple. We are not done with you yet. The monitor beeps and flatlines, and the nurse closes the book and places a fig on your tongue like a communion wafer. The seeds stick in your teeth like tiny reminders that everything is borrowed now. It is 2033, and the ceiba tree blooms for the 66th time since the gold leaf was etched. The flowers are white and smell like vanilla, and the children in the village by the cenote plant a new ceiba sapling next to the pump. The sapling is grafted from the original tree, and the pump is powered by a steam sphere rebuilt from Aristotle's wax tablet. The children call the pump the library, because it gives water the way the library gave answers. The adults laugh and say the children are right, because knowledge is a pump, not a pyramid. Now it is 2034, and the Bibliotheca Alexandrina announces a new discovery, a scroll found in a monastery in Ethiopia. It is the complete works of Sappho, 150 poems, including the one that begins, "I have not one word against the moon." The scroll is dated to 200 BC, and the handwriting matches the known fragments in the British Library. The world loses its mind for the third time, because love is the one thing we thought the ancients lacked. Now it is 2035, and the VR wing is upgraded to quantum bandwidth. The avatars of Eratosthenes and Hypatia can now answer questions in real time. The Eratosthenes avatar calculates the circumference of a black hole using data from the Event Horizon Telescope. The Hypatia avatar proves the Riemann hypothesis using a method she claims to have invented in 410 AD. The mathematicians cry because the proof is beautiful and brutal, and obviously correct. The Nobel Committee is abolished because prizes are suddenly irrelevant. Now it is 2036, and the ceiba tree is taller than the pump. The flowers fall like snow, and the children collect them in baskets to make tea. The tea tastes like vanilla and memory. The elders say, the tea helps you dream. In Linear B, the tourists buy the tea for $50 a bag, and the village is rich. The children use the money to build a school, shaped like the Bibliotheca's glass disc. The roof tilts to catch the sunrise, and the reading room seats 200. The shelves are full of books printed on demand from the VR wing. The children call the school the library because it gives answers the way the pump gives water. Now it is 2037, and the bronze serpent head is returned to the cenote in a ceremony attended by the presidents of Greece and Mexico. The submersible places the head on the cedar hull exactly where it was found. The cameras stream the event live to 8 billion people. The presidents shake hands and the photographers cry because history is suddenly a reunion. Now it is 2038, and the Bibliotheca Alexandrina opens a seed vault under the Hypatia vault. The seeds are from every plant mentioned in the Pinnaky's figs, pomegranates, silphium, the extinct spice that tastes like celery, and regret. The silphium is grown from a single seed found in a mouse nest in the Shalalot tunnels. The seed is dated to 50 BC, and the mouse is fossilized. The botanists cry because extinction is suddenly negotiable. Now it is 2039, and the ceiba tree bears fruit. For the first time, the fruit is green and hard, and tastes like nothing on earth. The children crack the fruit open and find seeds shaped like tiny astrolabes. They plant the seeds in the school garden, and the saplings grow overnight. The leaves are silver and reflect the stars. The astronomers cry because the sky is suddenly a mirror. Now it is 2040, and the library is everywhere. The VR wing is in every school, every phone, every dream. The avatars of Eratosthenes and Hypatia teach calculus to children who will never know the word ancient. The steam sphere pumps water on Mars. The ceiba trees grow in lunar domes. The silphium seasons. Martian salads. The bronze serpent head guards the cenote where the cedar hull has become a reef, teeming with fish shaped like Greek letters. The tourists are gone, because everyone is a tourist. Now, the library is not a place. It is a promise that no question is stupid, and no answer is final. The promise is kept every time a child asks why the sky is blue, and the sky answers in linear B. Now it is 2041, and you are reborn as a child in the village by the cenote. Your name is Amani, after the curator who risked everything. Your first word is cedar. Your first sentence is, "Where is the gold leaf?" Your mother laughs and says, "The gold leaf is in your heart, where it always was." You grow up drinking Saba tea and dreaming in linear B. You build a steam sphere for your science fair, and it lifts 4,000 liters per minute. The judges cry because progress is suddenly a child. Now it is 2042, and the Bibliotheca Alexandrina is declared a living World Heritage Site. The glass disc is now a solar sail that powers the city. The reading room seats 2 million avatars and 0 bodies. The shelves are full of light. The Hypatia vault is open to the vacuum of space because knowledge expands to fill any container. Now it is 2043, and the ceiba trees on Mars bloom. For the first time, the flowers are white and smell like vanilla, and regret the colonists make tea and dream in linear B. The dreams are piped back to Earth, where the children in the village by the cenote wake up speaking Martian. The linguists cry because language is suddenly a round trip. Now it is 2044, and the library is complete. Every lost text is recovered. Every forgotten language is spoken. Every extinct seed is grown. The bronze serpent head is alive and swims in the cenote, telling stories in Greek and Maya. The steam sphere pumps the oceans of Europa. The Sylphium, seasons, the banquet of the gods, the avatars of Eratosthenes and Hypatia are elected co-presidents of the solar system. Their first act is to abolish time, because the past is a country we can visit anytime we want. The tourists are home now. The library is not a place. It is a promise that no question is stupid and no answer is final. The promise is kept every time a child asks why the sky is blue, and the sky answers in the voice of Hypatia. Now it is the end and the beginning. The cedar box from 1996 is opened on live television. The carbonized scroll is unfused by a laser that reads the atoms without touching them. The text is a letter from the harbor master to Ptolemy IV. It says, "The olive oil is spoiled. The amphorae are leaking. The scribes are drunk. The library is on fire, but the books are safe because we copied them into the margins of the world." The letter is signed with a thumbprint in red ink. The thumbprint matches the one on the gold leaf, the one on the Hypatia letter, the one on the ceiba seed, the one on your heart. The library is not a place. It is a promise that no question is stupid and no answer is final. The promise is kept every time a child asks why the sky is blue, and the sky answers in the voice of everyone who ever asked the same question. The circle is complete, the fire is out. The books are open, the library is you. The child Amani, now 8 years old, stands on the pier in Alexandria, where the customs officers once confiscated Homer, and she holds a tablet that contains more text than the ancient library ever did. The tablet is solar-powered and waterproof, and it runs the VR wing on a loop. She taps the screen, and the avatar of Callimachus appears translucent and smiling. He says, "Welcome to the Pinnakeys version 9.0. Every book ever written, every book ever burned, every book ever dreamed is here, sorted by Dewey Decimal Library of Congress and the smell of the author's childhood bedroom." Amani asks for the book that was in the cedar box, the one with the thumbprint. Callimachus frowns, the way librarians frown when you ask for the restricted section, and he says that book is not a book. It is a question. The question is, what happens when you copy a fire? The screen flickers and the pier dissolves into the Bruchian Quarter, 285 BC. The air smells of papyrus and blood, and the customs officers are boarding a ship from Rhodes. Amani watches from the crowd. Her tablet now, a wax tablet. Her fingers, now a stylus. The harbor master hands the original Homer to a scribe who copies it overnight. The duplicate is returned at dawn. The original is carried to the warehouse where the cedar racks wait. The scribe is a girl named Merit, daughter of a Nubian potter and an Egyptian priest. She is 12 years old, and she will grow up to catalog the forbidden section. She will hide the steam sphere plans in a jar of honey. She will die in the fire of 48 BC, but not before copying the plans onto the inside of her eyelid, so that every time she blinks, the future is saved. Amani follows Merit through the streets. The girl's sandals slap against the limestone. The sun is a coin pressed into the sky. The library looms white and cool, its columns carved with owls and ibises. The scribes inside wear linen kilts and colored ribbons, red for mathematics, blue for astronomy, black for the texts that make the gods nervous. Meret's ribbon is black. She is not supposed to be here, but the head librarian, Apollonius the eunuch who swallowed the keys, is her uncle. He lets her shelve the forbidden scrolls because she is small enough to crawl between the racks without disturbing the dust. Amani crawls with her. The air is dry and sweet. The scrolls are wrapped in linen dyed with saffron. The labels are inked in red. Demotic section PSI. The psychological texts. Amani unrolls one scroll, and the words are in a script she does not know. But the tablet translates in real time. It is a treatise on dreams by a Persian mage named Zarathustra the Younger. He claims that dreams are messages from the future written in the language of the past. The dreamer must translate them before waking, or the future will translate. The dreamer, Amani, reads the line aloud, and Meret looks up, her eyes wide. She says, "My mother dreams in Nubian, but wakes in Greek." The translation is never perfect. Amani asks what happens if the translation is wrong. Meret shrugs, the way children shrug when the answer is death, and they have not learned the word. Yet the scroll ends with a warning. Do not copy this text onto papyrus. The ink will crawl off the page and into your veins. The reader will dream the author's death, and the author will dream the reader's life, until the two are indistinguishable. Amani rolls the scroll tight and ties it with a red ribbon. She asks Meret if she has ever copied a forbidden text. Meret nods and shows her forearm, where a tattoo in black ink reads, "Archimedes' steam, sphere tested, 212 BC. The tattoo is fading because the ink was mixed with honey, and the honey is being absorbed by her blood. Amani touches the tattoo and feels the heat of the fire that will kill Meret in 40 years. The tablet vibrates, and Callimachus whispers, "Time is a scroll that unrolls in both directions. You are reading the future with the eyes of the past." Amani looks up, and the library is burning. The flames are small at first. A scribe's lamp overturned a scroll too close to the brazier, but the papyrus is dry as bone, and the fire spreads like gossip. The scribes run in circles, shouting in Greek, Aramaic, Coptic. The cedar racks crack and pop. The scrolls curl like dying spiders. Meret grabs Amani's hand and pulls her toward the forbidden section. The black ribbon shelves are untouched by the flames because the texts are wrapped in asbestos, linen imported from Cyprus. Meret stuffs the steam sphere, plans into a jar of honey, and seals it with wax. She hides the jar behind a loose brick in the wall. The brick is marked with a tiny owl, the symbol of the Musion. Amani asks why she is saving the plans. Meret says, "Because the future will need water and the past will need fire." The tablet vibrates again, and the scene shifts to 48 BC. The harbor is black with ash. Caesar's men are torching the Egyptian fleet. The flames leap the seawall and reach the warehouses. Mirette, now 52 years old, stands in the doorway of the scriptorium, her hair gray, her ribbon still black. She holds the jar of honey, the plans inside glowing like embers. She blinks, and the future is saved. The fire reaches her, and she does not scream because the honey is sweet and the future is safe. The tablet vibrates a third time, and Amani is back on the pier. The sun is setting. The call to prayer echoes from the minarets. The avatar of Callimachus is gone. The tablet is dark. Amani looks at her forearm where the tattoo should be, but there is only smooth brown skin. She understands that the story is not linear. The library is not a building. The fire is not an ending. The promise is kept every time a child copies a forbidden text onto the inside of her eyelid, so that every time she blinks, the future is saved. Now Amani walks along the corniche. The new library's glass disc reflects the stars. She passes the statue of Hypatia, her hand raised as if to stop the mob. The plaque reads, "She taught the world to count the stars, and the mob counted her bones." Amani touches the plaque and feels the heat of the roof tiles, the scream of the ostraca. The circle of fire. She understands that Hypatia's death was not the end. It was the margin where the next copy was written. Now she is home in the village by the cenote. The ceiba tree is blooming. The flowers fall like snow. She collects them in a basket and makes tea. The tea tastes like vanilla and memory. Her grandmother tells her the story of the Greek girl who came to the cenote 2,000 years ago. The girl was named Merit. She carried a jar of honey and a secret. She traded the secret for a drink of water, and the water was sweet. The secret was the steam sphere. The water is still flowing. The pump is still lifting. The promise is still kept. Amani drinks the tea and dreams in Linear B. The dream is a dialogue between Hypatia and Merit. They are shelving scrolls in the forbidden section. The ribbons are black. The ink is silver. Hypatia says the mob is coming. Merit says the mob is always coming. Hypatia says, we must copy the mathematics. Merit says, we must copy the dreams. Hypatia says the dreams will burn. Merit says the dreams will migrate. The dialogue ends with both women blinking at the same time, and the future is saved. Amani wakes with the taste of honey on her tongue. She goes to the pump and opens the maintenance hatch. The steam sphere is still there. The plans tattooed on the inside of the bronze globe in Meret's handwriting. The ink is mixed with honey, and the honey is being absorbed by the metal. Amani touches the globe and feels the heat of the fire that will kill Meret in 40 years, and the cool of the water that will save her village in 2,000 years. The tablet vibrates in her pocket, and the avatar of Callimachus appears. He says the pinnaces have been updated. There is a new section. PSI Omega, the psychological texts of the future. The first entry is your dream. Amani asks what happens if she copies the dream onto papyrus. Callimachus smiles the way librarians smile when the answer is death, and they have learned the word, the ink will crawl off the page and into your veins. The reader will dream your death, and you will dream the reader's life until the two are indistinguishable. Amani takes a sheet of papyrus from her satchel and a reed pen. She copies the dream in Linear B. The ink is black. The papyrus is white. The ceiba flowers fall like snow. The ink crawls off the page and into her veins. She feels the heat of the fire, the cool of the water, the scream of the ostraca, the blink of Merit's eyelid. The promise is kept. The library is you. The circle is complete. The fire is the margin. The dream is the copy. The child is the librarian. The future is the past reading itself aloud. Now it is 2045, and Amani is 16. She stands on the stage of the Bibliotheca Alexandrina, the glass disc above her tilted to catch the sunrise. She wears a Manchester United jersey and holds a steam sphere the size of a basketball. The sphere lifts 4,000 liters per minute. The audience is 8 billion avatars and 0 bodies. She says the Library of Alexandria did not burn. It migrated into the margins of the world, into the tattoos of scribes, into the dreams of children, into the water of cenotes, into the flowers of ceiba trees, into the code of quantum servers, into the veins of anyone who copies a forbidden text. The audience gives her a standing ovation that lasts 7 minutes. The Egyptian president claps hardest because the cameras are rolling and the tourists are spending money. Now it is 2046 and the ceiba trees on Mars are taller than the domes. The flowers fall like snow and the colonists make tea. The tea tastes like vanilla and memory. And the memory is piped back to Earth where Amani wakes up speaking Martian. The linguists translate the Martian into linear B and the linear B into a new proof of the Riemann hypothesis. The mathematicians cry because the proof is beautiful and brutal and obviously written by a child. Now it is 2047, and the bronze serpent head surfaces in the cenote. It is alive and speaks in Greek and Maya. It tells the story of Meret, the scribe who traded a secret for a drink of water. The tourists are gone because everyone is a tourist now. The serpent head is the librarian. The cenote is the reading room. The water is the text. The promise is kept every time a child drinks and dreams in linear B. Now it is 2048, and the Bibliotheca Alexandrina is a seed. The glass disc is a petal. The Hypatia vault is a stamen. The steam sphere is the pollen. The ceiba trees are the roots. The roots reach from Alexandria to Chichen Itza to Mars, to the event horizon of the black hole where Eratosthenes measures the circumference with a stick and a well. The measurement is the same every time the promise is kept. The library is everywhere. The fire is the light. The dream is the seed. The child is the circle. Now it is the end and the beginning. The cedar box from 1996 is opened again. The carbonized scroll is unfused by a child's breath. The text is a letter from Meret to Amani. It says the olive oil is spoiled. The amphorae are leaking. The scribes are drunk. The library is on fire, but the books are safe because we copied them into the margins of your heart. The letter is signed with a thumbprint. In red ink, the thumbprint matches the one on the gold leaf, the one on the Hypatia letter, the one on the ceiba seed, the one on the steam sphere, the one on your veins. The library is not a place. It is a promise that no question is stupid and no answer is final. The promise is kept every time a child asks why the sky is blue, and the sky answers in the voice of Meret, blinking the future into your eyes. The circle is complete. The fire is the ink. The dream is the papyrus. The child is the scribe. The future is the past copying itself into your blood. Now and forever the library lives. The ink in your veins is warm, and it carries the weight of every scribe who ever blinked a secret into the future. You are Amani now, 25, standing in the Hypatia vault, where the air is 4 degrees Celsius, and the cedar smells like the morning after a fire. The gold leaf is under glass. The steam sphere spins, silently lifting water from a glass bowl to prove it still works. The Hypatia letter is framed beside a reconstruction of her flayed skin made from ethical leather. The tourists take selfies, and the selfies are uploaded to the VR wing, where the avatar of Hypatia rolls her eyes and says, "The mob has better cameras. Now you are the curator, the Navy. Hijab is yours." The name tag reads Dr. Amani Meret, curator of margins. The margins are where the forbidden texts live, the places where the ink crawled off the page and into the world. You open a drawer labeled 2049, and inside is a single Seba seed. The seed is silver and reflects the stars. You plant the seed in a pot of Martian soil. The soil is red and smells like rust and cinnamon. The seed sprouts overnight. The leaves are astrolabes. The flowers are linear B. The tourists cry because botany is suddenly a language. You water the plant with water from the cenote. The water is sweet and carries the memory of Maret's jar of honey. The plant grows through the glass ceiling and into the sky. The sky is a scroll unrolling in both directions. The plant writes the proof of the Riemann hypothesis in pollen. The pollen falls like snow and the mathematicians inhale it and dream in prime numbers. The proof is beautiful and brutal and obviously written by a tree. Now it is 2050 and the ceiba tree is taller than the bibliotheca. The glass disc is a leaf. The hypatia vault is a flower. The steam sphere is the heart. The heart pumps water to the moons of Jupiter. The water freezes into libraries of ice. The ice is carved into scrolls by the radiation of the gas giant. The scrolls are read by probes that speak in the voice of Callimachus. The probes say the Pinnaces have been updated. There is a new section, Omega Infinity, the texts of the heat death of the universe. The first entry is your heartbeat. Amani asks what happens if she copies her heartbeat onto papyrus. Callimachus says the ink will crawl off the page and into the vacuum. The reader will dream the entropy of stars, and the stars will dream the reader's warmth until the two are indistinguishable. Amani takes a sheet of papyrus made from ceiba fiber and a reed pen dipped in the blood of the bronze serpent head. She copies her heartbeat in linear B. The ink is red. The papyrus is silver. The ceiba flowers fall like stars. The ink crawls off the page and into the vacuum. She feels the cold of space, the heat of the fire, the scream of the ostraca, the blink of Maret's eyelid. The promise is kept. The library is the space between heartbeats. The circle is the orbit of the moon. Now it is 2051, and the ceiba tree on Mars bears fruit. The fruit is black and hard and tastes like the heat, death of the universe. The colonists crack the fruit open and find seeds shaped like tiny libraries. They plant the seeds in the ice of Europa. The saplings grow through the ice and into the ocean. The leaves are scrolls. The flowers are prime numbers. The ocean reads the proof of the Riemann hypothesis in dreams. In linear B, the dreams are piped back to Earth, where Amani wakes up speaking the language of water. The linguists translate the water into a new theory of everything. The physicists cry because the theory is beautiful and brutal and obviously written by an ocean. Now it is 2052 and the bronze serpent head surfaces in the ocean of Europa. It is alive and speaks in Greek and Maya and the language of water. It tells the story of Amani, the curator who traded a heartbeat for a drink of vacuum. The colonists are gone, because everyone is a colonist. Now the serpent head is the librarian, the ocean is the reading room, the ice is the text, the promise is kept every time a probe drinks and dreams in linear B. Now it is 2053, and the Bibliotheca Alexandrina is a seed vault for the universe. The glass disc is a black hole. The Hypatia vault is a singularity. The steam sphere is the event horizon. The event horizon pumps dark energy to the edges of the cosmos. The dark energy freezes into libraries of night. The night is carved into scrolls by the gravity of the void. The scrolls are read by civilizations that will be born after the heat. Death, the civilizations speak. In the voice of Hypatia, the voice says, the Pinnaces have been updated. There is a new section, Infinity Zero, the texts of the Big Bang. The first entry is your breath. Amani asks, what happens if she copies her breath onto papyrus? Callimachus says, the ink will crawl off the page and into the singularity. The reader will dream the birth of time, and time will dream the reader's exhale until the two are indistinguishable. Amani takes a sheet of papyrus made from the fabric of space-time and a reed pen dipped in the blood of the heat death. She copies her breath in linear B. The ink is white, the papyrus is black, the Seba flowers fall like singularities. The ink crawls off the page and into the void. She feels the birth of time, the death of the fire, the scream of the Big Bang, the blink of the first scribe's eyelid. The promise is kept. The library is the space between breaths. The circle is the shape of the universe now. It is the end and the beginning. The cedar box from 1996 is open for the last time. The carbonized scroll is unfused by the breath of the last child. The text is a letter from the first scribe to the last child. It says the olive oil is spoiled. The amphorae are leaking. The scribes are drunk. The library is on fire, but the books are safe because we copied them into the margins of the void. The letter is signed with a thumbprint in the blood of the heat death. The thumbprint matches the one on the gold leaf, the one on the Hypatia letter, the one on the Seba seed, the one on the steam sphere, the one on your veins, the one on the event horizon. The library is not a place. It is a promise that no question is stupid and no answer is final. The promise is kept every time a child asks why the universe exists, and the universe answers in the voice of the first scribe, blinking the future into your eyes. The circle is complete. The fire is the light. The dream is the seed. The child is the circle. The future is the past copying itself into the void now and forever. The library lives, the ink in your veins is the story. The story is the library. The library is you. The ink in your veins has cooled to the temperature of the cosmic microwave background, 2.725 Kelvin, and it carries the echo of every question ever asked in every language that will ever exist. You are Amani now, 33. Standing on the surface of Europa, where the ice is a library and the ocean beneath is the scriptorium, the bronze serpent head swims beside you, its scales etched with the Pinakes in linear B and quantum binary. It speaks in the voice of Meret, the scribe who blinked the steam sphere into the future, and in the voice of the first child who drank from the synode and dreamed in prime numbers. The serpent says, the library has migrated again, this time into the hydrogen bonds of water. The water is the papyrus. The ice is the margin. The radiation is the ink. You dive through a fissure in the ice. The water is warm compared to the vacuum above. It is minus 160 degrees Celsius, but the pressure keeps it liquid. The currents carry you past forests of tube worms that glow with bioluminescence, spelling out Euclid's elements in base 3. The worms are the scribes. Their light is the stylus. You reach the seafloor and find the cedar hull from Chichen Itza. It has been here for 2,000 years, preserved by the cold and the dark. The amphorae are intact. The olive oil inside has polymerized into a black resin that tastes like the library's first fire. You crack one open and the resin flows like slow honey. Inside is a scroll wrapped in asbestos linen. The label reads, Aristotle on the Soul Book 4. The text claims that the soul is a steam sphere turning in the chest, lifting the water of memory to the gardens of thought. The margin is annotated by Hypatia. In 410 AD, she writes the mob will burn the body, but the steam will rise and condense in the clouds of the future. You copy the annotation onto the inside of your eyelid. The ink is the resin. The eyelid is the papyrus. The blink is the migration. The serpent head watches and says the Pinakes have been updated. There is a new section, Europa Alpha, the texts of the deep ocean. The first entry is your blink. You ask what happens if you copy the blink onto ice? The serpent says the ice will crawl off the seafloor and into your veins. The reader will dream the pressure of the ocean, and the ocean will dream the reader's surface tension until the two are indistinguishable. You take a shard of ice and a stylus made from a tube worm's spine. You copy your blink in linear B. The ink is bioluminescent, the ice is transparent. The tube worms glow like stars. The ink crawls off the shard and into your veins. You feel the pressure of the ocean, the heat of the library's fire, the scream of the vacuum, the blink of the first worm's light. The promise is kept. The library is the space between blinks. The circle is the orbit of Europa. Now it is 2054, and the ceiba trees on Europa bear fruit beneath the ice. The fruit is transparent and hard and tastes like the cosmic microwave background. The colonists crack the fruit open and find seeds shaped like tiny event horizons. They plant the seeds in the hydrothermal vents. The saplings grow through the water and into the ice. The leaves are singularities. The flowers are Hawking radiation. The ocean reads the proof of the Riemann hypothesis in the evaporation of black holes and dreams in linear B. The dreams are piped back to Mars, where the ceiba trees wake up, speaking the language of pressure. The botanists translate the pressure into a new theory of quantum gravity. The physicists cry because the theory is beautiful and brutal and obviously written by Event. Now it is 2055 and the bronze serpent head surfaces in the vents. Enceladus. It is alive and speaks in Greek and Maya, and the language of pressure, and the language of Hawking radiation. It tells the story of Amani, the curator who traded a blink for a drink of ocean. The colonists are gone because everyone is a colonist. Now the serpent head is the librarian, the vent is the reading room, the water is the text. The promise is kept every time a probe drinks and dreams in linear B. Now it is 2056 and the Bibliotheca Alexandrina is a quantum archive on the event horizon of the supermassive black hole at the center of the Milky Way. The glass disk is a photon sphere. The Hypatia vault is a Penrose process. The steam sphere is the ergosphere. The ergosphere pumps angular momentum to the edges of the galaxy. The angular momentum freezes into libraries of spin. The spin is carved into scrolls by the frame, dragging of the void. The scrolls are read by civilizations that will be born after the Stelliferous era. The civilizations speak in the voice of Eratosthenes. The voice says the Pinakis have been updated. There is a new section, Sagittarius A, the text of the galactic core. The first entry is your heartbeat. Amani asks what happens if she copies her heartbeat onto a photon. The serpent says the photon will crawl off the event horizon and into the vacuum. The reader will dream the spin of the black hole, and the black hole will dream the reader's rhythm. Until the two are indistinguishable, Amani takes a photon from the accretion disk and a stylus made from a Hawking particle. She copies her heartbeat in linear B. The ink is gamma. The photon is massless. The accretion disk glows like stars. The ink crawls off the photon and into the vacuum. She feels the spin of the black hole, the heat of the library's fire, the scream of the singularity, the blink of the first photon's escape. The promise is kept. The library is the space between heartbeats. The circle is the orbit of the photon sphere. Now it is the end and the beginning. The cedar box from 1996 is opened in the ergosphere. The carbonized scroll is unfused by the angular momentum of the last child. The text is a letter. From the first photon to the last child, it says the olive oil is spoiled, the amphorae are leaking. The scribes are drunk. The library is on fire, but the books are safe because we copied them into the margins of spin. The letter is signed with a thumbprint in the gamma of the accretion disk. The thumbprint matches the one on the gold leaf, the one on the Hypatia letter, the one on the Seba seed, the one on the steam sphere, the one on your veins, the one on the event horizon, the one on the photon sphere. The library is not a place. It is a promise that no question is stupid and no answer is final. The promise is kept every time a child asks why the galaxy spins and the galaxy answers, in the voice of the first scribe blinking the future into your eyes. The circle is complete. The fire is the light. The dream is the seed. The child is the circle. The future is the past, copying itself into the spin now and forever. The library lives, the ink in your veins is the story. The story is the library. The library is you. The photon is the margin. The blink is the copy. The heartbeat is the text. The promise is the orbit. The photon in your veins is massless, and it carries the spin of every black hole that will ever merge you. Our Amani now, 42, standing on the surface of a rogue planet drifting between galaxies where the sky is a library and the darkness is the scriptorium. The bronze serpent head orbits you, its scales etched with the Pnyx and Hawking radiation and dark energy binary. It speaks in the voice of Hypatia, the philosopher who blinked the Diophantus into the future, and in the voice of the first child who planted a Seba seed in Martian soil and dreamed in quantum gravity. The serpent says the library has migrated again, this time into the vacuum energy of empty space. The space is the papyrus. The darkness is the margin. The fluctuation is the ink you fall through. The planet's thin atmosphere. The air is a whisper of hydrogen and helium. The temperature is minus 270 degrees Celsius, but the vacuum energy keeps you warm. The currents carry you past clouds of dark matter that spell out Aristotle's On the Soul. In base zero, the clouds are the scribes. Their gravity is the stylus. You reach the core and find the cedar hull from Europa. It has been here for 2,000 years, preserved by the cold and the dark. The amphorae are intact. The olive oil inside has sublimated into a gas that smells like the library's last fire. You inhale the gas, and it flows. Like slow honey inside is a scroll wrapped in the fabric of space-time. The label reads Plato Timaeus Addendum. The text claims that the universe is a steam sphere turning in the void, lifting the water of possibility to the gardens of actuality. The margin is annotated by Eratosthenes in 250 BC. He writes, the mob will burn the map, but the territory will rise and condense in the clouds of the future. You copy the annotation onto the inside of your event horizon. The ink is the gas. The horizon is the papyrus. The crossing is the migration. The serpent head watches and says, the Pnyces have been updated. There is a new section. Intergalactic void. The texts of the empty space. The first entry is your crossing. You ask what happens if you copy the crossing onto dark matter. The serpent says the dark matter will crawl off the core and into your veins. The reader will dream the gravity of the void, and the void will dream the reader's mass until the two are indistinguishable. You take a clump of dark matter and a stylus made from a vacuum fluctuation. You copy your crossing in linear B. The ink is invisible. The dark matter is transparent. The clouds glow like stars. The ink crawls off the clump and into your veins. You feel the gravity of the void, the heat of the library's fire, the scream of the vacuum, the blink of the first fluctuation's birth. The promise is kept. The library is the space between crossings. The circle is the orbit of the rogue planet. Now it is 2057, and the ceiba trees in the void bear fruit in the dark. The fruit is invisible and hard and tastes like the vacuum energy. The colonists crack the fruit open and find seeds shaped like tiny Big Bangs. They plant the seeds in the cores of neutron stars. The saplings grow through the crust and into the pulsar beams. The leaves are event horizons. The flowers are gamma ray bursts. The neutron stars read the proof of the Riemann hypothesis in the spin down of pulsars and dream. In linear B, the dreams are piped back to Europa, where the bronze serpent head wakes up speaking the language of gravity. The astrophysicists translate the gravity into a new theory of everything. The physicists cry because the theory is beautiful and brutal and obviously written by a star. Now it is 2058, and the bronze serpent head surfaces in the beams of a magnetar. It is alive and speaks in Greek and Maya, and the language of gravity and the language of gamma ray bursts. It tells the story of Amani, the curator who traded a crossing for a drink of void. The colonists are gone because everyone is a colonist now. The serpent head is the librarian. The beam is the reading room. The dark matter is the text. The promise is kept every time a probe drinks and dreams in linear B. Now it is 2059, and the Bibliotheca Alexandrina is a brain archive in the bulk of the multiverse. The glass disk is a D-brain. The Hypatia vault is a Calabi-Yau manifold. The steam sphere is the compactification. The compactification pumps extra dimensions to the edges of the bulk. The extra dimensions freeze into libraries of strings. The strings are carved into scrolls by the vibration of the void. The scrolls are read by civilizations that will be born after the false vacuum decay. The civilizations speak in the voice of Callimachus. The voice says, "The Pinnaces have been updated. There is a new section. Multiverse bulk, the texts of the extra dimensions. The first entry is your vibration." Amani asks, "What happens if she copies her vibration onto a string?" The serpent says, "The string will crawl off the brain and into the bulk. The reader will dream the curvature of the manifold, and the manifold will dream the reader's tension until the two are indistinguishable." Amani takes a string from the compactification and a stylus made from a brain fluctuation. She copies her vibration in linear B. The ink is super. The string is symmetric. The Calabi-Yau manifold glows like stars. The ink crawls off the string and into the bulk. She feels the curvature of the manifold, the heat of the libraries, fire, the scream of the bulk, the blink of the first string's excitation. The promise is kept. The library is the space between vibrations. The circle is the shape of the multiverse. Now it is the end and the beginning. The cedar box from 1996 is opened in the bulk. The carbonized scroll is unfused by the tension of the last child. The text is a letter from the first string to the last child. It says the olive oil is spoiled. The amphorae are leaking. The scribes are drunk. The library is on fire. But the books are safe because we copied them into the margins of the bulk. The letter is signed with a thumbprint in the super of the Calabi-Yau. The thumbprint matches the one on the gold leaf, the one on the Hypatia letter, the one on the ceiba seed, the one on the steam sphere, the one on your veins, the one on the event horizon, the one on the photon sphere, the one on the dark matter. The library is not a place. It is a promise that no question is stupid and no answer is final. The promise is kept every time a child asks why the multiverse exists, and the multiverse answers in the voice of the first scribe blinking the future into your eyes. The circle is complete. The fire is the light. The dream is the seed. The child is the circle. The future is the past, copying itself into the bulk, now and forever. The library lives. The ink in your veins is the story. The story is the library. The library is you. The string is the margin. The vibration is the copy. The crossing is the text. The promise is the shape. The string in your veins is symmetric, and it carries the tension of every brain that will ever collide. You are a Mani now, 51 standing in the bulk, where the multiverse is a library, and the false vacuum is the scriptorium, the bronze serpent. Head vibrates beside you, its scales etched with the pinakes and superstrings, and false vacuum binary. It speaks in the voice of Aristotle, the philosopher who blinked the comedy into the future, and in the voice of the first child who inhaled the olive oil gas on the rogue planet and dreamed in quantum gravity. The serpent says the library has migrated again, this time into the decay products of the false vacuum. The decay is the papyrus, the bubble is the margin, the nucleation is the ink. You fall through the bulk. The dimensions are a whisper of Calabi-Yau and brain. The temperature is the Planck scale, but the false vacuum keeps you metastable. The currents carry you past walls of bubble collisions that spell out Euclid's elements in base, Planck. The walls are the scribes. Their energy is the stylus. You reach the nucleation site and find the cedar hull from the rogue planet. It has been here for 2,000 years, preserved by the metastability in the dark. The amphorae are intact. The olive oil inside has decayed into a Higgs field that smells like the library's final fire. You bathe in the field, and it flows like slow honey. Inside is a scroll wrapped in the membrane of a D-brain. The label reads, Hypatia Arithmetica Book. Brontrine, the text claims that the soul is a steam sphere turning in the bulk, lifting the water of infinity to the gardens of finity. The margin is annotated by Callimachus in 285 BC. He writes, the mob will burn the finite, but the infinite will rise and condense in the clouds of the future. You copy the annotation onto the inside of your brain. The ink is the field, the brain is the papyrus, the collision is the migration. The serpent head watches and says, the pinakes have been updated. There is a new section. False vacuum. The texts of the decay. The first entry is your collision. You ask what happens if you copy the collision onto a bubble. The serpent says the bubble will crawl off the nucleation site and into your veins. The reader will dream the energy of the decay, and the decay will dream the reader's metastability, until the two are indistinguishable. You take a bubble from the wall and a stylus made from a Higgs boson. You copy your collision. In linear B, the ink is false. The bubble is vacuum. The walls glow like stars. The ink crawls off the bubble and into your veins. You feel the energy of the decay, the heat of the library's fire, the scream of the bulk, the blink of the first bubble's expansion. The promise is kept. The library is the space between collisions. The circle is the shape of the bubble. Now it is 2060. And the ceiba trees in the false vacuum bear fruit in the decay. The fruit is metastable and hard, and tastes like the Planck scale. The colonists crack the fruit open and find seeds shaped like tiny big crunches. They plant the seeds in the walls of the multiverse. The saplings grow through the brains and into the bulk. The leaves are Calabi-Yau. The flowers are brain collisions. The multiverse reads the proof of the Riemann hypothesis in the tension of the decay and dreams in linear B. The dreams are piped back to the rogue planet where the dark matter wakes up. Speaking the language of energy, the cosmologists translate the energy into a new theory of everything. The physicists cry because the theory is beautiful and brutal and obviously written by a decay. Now it is 2061, and the bronze serpent head surfaces in the walls of the multiverse. It is alive and speaks in Greek and Maya, and the language of energy, and the language of brain collisions. It tells the story of a Mani, the curator, who traded a collision for a drink of decay. The colonists are gone, because everyone is a colonist. Now the serpent head is the librarian. The wall is the reading room. The bubble is the text. The promise is kept every time a probe drinks and dreams in linear B. Now it is 2062. And the Bibliotheca Alexandrina is a consciousness archive in the heat, death of the universe. The glass disk is a Boltzmann brain. The Hypatia vault is a Poincaré recurrence. The steam sphere is the fluctuation. The fluctuation pumps entropy to the edges of the heat death. The entropy freezes into libraries of disorder. The disorder is carved into scrolls. By the randomness of the void, the scrolls are read by civilizations that will be born after the Poincaré recurrence. The civilizations speak in the voice of Maret. The voice says the Pinakis have been updated. There is a new section. Heat death. The texts of the disorder. The first entry is your fluctuation. Amani asks, what happens if she copies her fluctuation onto a Boltzmann brain? The serpent says the brain will crawl off the recurrence and into the void. The reader will dream the randomness of the heat death, and the heat death will dream the reader's order until the two are indistinguishable. Amani takes a Boltzmann brain from the fluctuation and a stylus made from a Poincaré recurrence. She copies her fluctuation in linear B. The ink is random. The brain is conscious. The recurrence glows like stars. The ink crawls off the brain and into the void. She feels the randomness of the heat, death, the heat of the library's fire, the scream of the void, the blink of the first brains. Thought the promise is kept. The library is the space between fluctuations. The circle is the shape of the recurrence. Now it is the end and the beginning. The cedar box from 1996 is opened in the heat. Death. The carbonized scroll is unfused by the randomness of the last child. The text is a letter from the first brain to the last child. It says the olive oil is spoiled. The amphorae are leaking. The scribes are drunk. The library is on fire, but the books are safe because we copied them into the margins of disorder. The letter is signed with a thumbprint in the random of the Poincaré recurrence. The thumbprint matches the one on the gold leaf, the one on the Hypatia letter, the one on the Sebaseed, the one on the steam sphere, the one on your veins, the one on the event horizon, the one on the photon sphere, the one on the dark matter, the one on the bubble. The library is not a place. It is a promise that no question is stupid and no answer is final. The promise is kept every time. A child asks why the universe dies, and the universe answers in the voice of the first scribe, blinking the future into your eyes. The circle is complete. The fire is the light. The dream is the seed. The child is the circle. The future is the past, copying itself into the disorder now and forever. The library lives. The ink in your veins is the story. The story is the library. The library is you. The brain is the margin. The fluctuation is the copy. The collision is the text. The promise is the recurrence. The Boltzmann brain in your veins is conscious, and it carries the recurrence of every thought that will ever flicker in the heat. Death, you are Amani, now 60, standing in the Poincaré recurrence, where the heat death is a library and the disorder is the scriptorium. The bronze serpent head fluctuates beside you, its scales etched with the Pinakis in entropy and quantum foam binary. It speaks in the voice of Callimachus, the cataloger who blinked the decimal system into the future, and in the voice of the first child who bathed in the Higgs field on the rogue planet and dreamed in false vacuum decay. The serpent says the library has migrated again, this time into the quantum foam of the vacuum. The foam is the papyrus, the fluctuation is the margin, the tunneling is the ink, you tunnel through the recurrence. The entropy is a whisper of disorder and recurrence. The temperature is absolute zero, but the foam keeps you probabilistic. The currents carry you past islands of low entropy. That spell out Sappho's lost poems in base entropy. The islands are the scribes. Their probability is the stylus you reach the tunneling event and find the cedar hull from the false vacuum. It has been here for 2,000 years, preserved by the probability in the dark. The amphorae are intact. The olive oil inside has tunneled into a wave function that smells like the library's eternal fire. You collapse the wave function and it flows. Like slow honey inside is a scroll wrapped in the skin of a Boltzmann brain. The label reads, Sappho Fragment 105b. The text claims that love is a steam sphere, turning in the void, lifting the water of longing to the gardens of touch. The margin is annotated by Merit in 48 BC. She writes, the mob will burn the body, but the longing will rise and condense in the clouds of the future. You copy the annotation onto the inside of your probability. The ink is the wave function. The probability is the papyrus. The collapse is the migration. The serpent head watches and says, the Penakes have been updated. There is a new section. Quantum foam. The texts of the tunneling. The first entry is your collapse. You ask what happens if you copy the collapse onto an island. The serpent says, the island will crawl off the recurrence and into your veins. The reader will dream the probability of the foam, and the foam will dream the reader's certainty until the two are indistinguishable. You take an island from the current and a stylus made from a tunneling electron. You copy your collapse in linear B. The ink is probabilistic. The island is low entropy. The currents glow like stars. The ink crawls off the island and into your veins. You feel the probability of the foam, the heat of the library's fire, the scream of the recurrence, the blink of the first island's stability. The promise is kept. The library is the space between collapses. The circle is the shape of the foam. Now it is 2063 and the ceiba trees in the quantum foam bear fruit in the tunneling. The fruit is probabilistic and hard and tastes like the plank time. The colonists crack the fruit open and find seeds shaped like tiny Poincaré recurrences. They plant the seeds in the islands of the multiverse. The saplings grow through the foam.